Hey everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and in the last 5 games for the Toronto Maple Leafs, we went 4-0-1 in games against Edmonton and Calgary. So here to talk to me about that is my good buddy Matt Pasut. Thank you, Suter, for hopping on this. I appreciate that. I'm going to fire off some questions to you. So, most impressive Leaf in that 5-game stretch? Go.
We're gonna go with Freddie Anderson. I think that just a pretty rough start in his first two starts. Um, I think that he can make sure that even with Campbell gone now, that the questions of whether or not we have to have a goalie controversy conversation when Campbell comes back can kind of be erased at this point. I'm not sure the numbers would dictate that he was, an all-world top 10 goalie in this league over the last 5 games, but he definitely made sure that there was no questionable goals, that he was keeping the team in the game. Game in Calgary, where Calgary had one shot in the first and then bombarded us in the second. Leafs looked like they had full control of that game, and he did a great job of making sure that he held us in and just made sure
Not to
that they got the
mention,
win there.
yeah, not to mention the last game where he absolutely saved us a point with the 2-on-1
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah, that 2-on-1, which exactly saved us a point and gave us an opportunity to get our 2 points out of Edmonton. But no, I'd say just granted on the way the season started for him, I'd say very impressive the way he's rebounded super quick.
Well, Suter, we've had a lot of conversations recently about some guys that we wish would step up a little bit more. Who do you think has the most to improve on moving forward after those 5 games?
Well, off air just now, I just said Riley, and we can have a debate about that. But I think we both agreed last week when we last spoke. I think it would probably echo into this week that maybe Jake Muzzin would be the most underperforming of the, let's call it the Big Ten. Let's say like our top six and our top two D pair have to be um, at the top of their game to make sure that this team has a real shot of not only winning their playoff rounds and making the playoffs, but having a chance at contending because um, Leafs don't have Victor Hedman on the back end, and we're going to need to do it by committee more than we're going to have like that one superstar babysitting his D partner. So I would say Hull's been the most impressive. And granted that Muzzin hasn't really been at the top of his game from what we've seen here in Toronto since he got here. I would say that I would like a little bit more from him, not even offensively, just a little bit more security on the D zone. That's it.
Yeah, you know what? I felt in the past that that Hall Muzzin line is more of a shutdown pairing, but yet Hall's creating some offensive chances and Muzzin
Right?
just isn't stepping up as a defensive guy. So I want a little bit more out of them to feel a little bit more secure that if we need a shutdown line at the end of a game to secure a win, that we can rely on those guys. So
Yeah.
definitely agree with the call that Jake Muzzin needs to step up a little bit. Matt, I know that you were equally as rattled this week as I was with the officiating in this league and how inconsistent it's been. Can you give me your thoughts on what you've seen out of the refs?
Well, I said it last week after Edmonton walked away with 2 points in Toronto that something's going on because um, we saw a lot of infractions that weren't infractions, and we saw a lot of penalties that were not called, especially in last game. And they said it live on air, and the perception is always that Edmonton is a high flying offense that's a little bit below average defensively. And the reality is that they're a very average, if not below average offense for what they have there, who is also poor defensively. And I'm just not sure what's going on. There was a missed call on Mikheyev, and then the so-called makeup call on Yamamoto shortly after, and it's just the lack of consistency. And I'm sure the NHL, from what I remember at the beginning of the year, they were keeping the officiating crews together in certain towns or at least in certain provinces in Ontario. And I'm just not sure how the discrepancy is so wide. You get soft calls left, right, and center in Toronto against the Leafs, and then you get no calls against the Leafs when you go to Edmonton. And um, if you want to make a game 12, 14 power plays aside, split between the two teams, go ahead and we can just kind of shoot it out like that. But I don't think that's what the direction of the league is headed towards. And you'd like to see a little bit more compete, but not to the this disparity right now for the Leafs going up against the Oilers. And again, last night against Ottawa, you know, just McDavid and Draisaitl take over on the power play. They get their 2 points. They walk out of there with a pretty easy win, 8-5. But all power play points for those two, and just not really sure what's going to happen going forward. I thought it would probably be done with by now, especially after that game in Toronto, you know. But
Well, I've been pulling my hair out just with the inconsistency. I mean, you got to go one way or the other. You see Austin Matthews taking cross check after cross check in front of the net that doesn't go called. And then you see Alex Kerfoot get 2 slashing penalties, but neither of them slashing motions, just the whereabouts of the stick being in the hands. And then you see Ilya Mikheyev get torn down on the break.
yeah,
And that doesn't get called. It's like, what in this league is a penalty and what in this league is not? And you got to figure it out with these refs, because as a player and as a fan, you truly don't understand what you're going to get called on any given night. So something the NHL needs to look at.
yeah.
Matt, last thing, 4-0-1, like I said in the last few games. Give us a letter grade. How do you think the Leafs have been playing?
I leave every game thinking they played solid, and it's not an easy division to play in, no matter how poor some of those teams are. I think there's a little bit. I think the domination that they have in periods, if that can be consistent through not only all 3 periods of a game, but in stretches of games, uh, and they can start stringing that stuff together, I think they can definitely put a stamp on this division early on. I just don't think that they've quite done it yet, and fair enough. You know, they're making a lot of changes in that lineup on that fourth line. They're trying to work in 7D. They're trying to, deal with, Jumbo's been out, and I don't know about you, but I kind of forgot now that he's been around. He was here a lot less than that top 6 looks pretty normal to me considering last year, right? So, but they did put a lot of work on that top line with him being included on the wing. So a lot of adjustments on the go. Still 4-0-1. Still some improvements to be made. I throw them a B plus, and hope that this 3-game stretch versus Vancouver can go seemingly, maybe. I think the Canucks have been struggling just a little bit, and the Leafs should be able to really hammer them here for the next 3.
To go 4-0-1 and get a B plus, that's a pretty critical review. However, the Leafs have gone on record saying that they know they're not playing at the top of their game. So I think that's very fair to say that there's enough room to grow into an A plus.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. It's been a good 5-game stretch. Hopefully the next 5 go well. Like you said, we got 3 games against Vancouver coming up here. So have the opportunity to go really make a stretch on the rest of the division here. And hopefully they're able to do that.
100%, buddy.